I have a master's degree in counseling. My PhD is in educational psychology, and I'm really focused on helping people develop the skills they need to be successful in life. So oftentimes that is combining emotional intelligence with critical thinking skills. The power of positivity, I think, really falls in the middle of those, where we're looking at our understanding of how we feel, and then also adding in some critical thinking too. How can I change how I'm feeling? And how can I really take some steps to support some more positive thinking? So I'm excited to be with all of you today. I've spoken with SNHU a few times before, so I'm excited to be back with all of you again today too. So this session today, I'll be talking about the background of positive thinking and positive psychology. We'll talk about pursuing happiness and reasons why, as well as some best practices, role models, and then some strategies that you can use. So as I get started here today, I'd like to get a sense for what you're interested in. So why did you attend this session today? What sparked your interest? If you can share that with me in the chat, I would appreciate seeing a little bit about why you're here. What really struck you as interesting about this session today? Or another way to answer that question is, what do you hope to learn today in this session? So feel free to put that in the chat. It's always great to see kind of where you're coming from and what you're hoping to get from this session. So let's see. All right, and so I see trying to better my overall mental well-being. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So this is one of the reasons why you've got this session here today. I know you're doing a lot of events this month to really raise awareness. So I'm glad that this really ties in there. I see in the chat also being more positive, incorporating more mindfulness, growing as a person, motivation, fantastic. Oh, good. I especially love, I love being positive and wanted to see what I can share with others that may struggle. That's great. Thank you for joining me here. Okay, so I'm going to give you a really brief background in history. You might be familiar with psychology. It evolved as a field that really was focused on what we call psychopathology, where we go wrong, how we develop psychological disorders, where and how we develop mental illness, and how we can treat these diagnoses. However, in the 90s, Martin Seligman really challenged psychology to turn its thinking on its head. And he really established the field of positive psychology, which is looking at where things go right. Instead of being focused on where mental illness develops, where does resilience come from? How does positive thinking help us? Can it help us, right? And so he really challenged psychology to look at individuals, their behavior, their development through a new lens to look at how do we thrive and what are the factors in our lives that can keep us on track, keep us strong, keep us going, even when we are struggling and facing adversity. So Dr. Martin Seligman is considered the founder of the field of positive psychology. And I see, yes, great. I see people are also describing their love for the field in the chat. Great. So pursuing happiness. So here are some ideas just initially to help you think about pursuing happiness. And I'd love to hear from you in the chat again. What are some things you do that help you feel happy? It might feel like a silly question, but sometimes we forget what makes us feel happy. When we're really struggling, when we're really down, when we've got tons of stress at work or personal life, it's easy to forget what makes us happy. And that might sound strange, but I know it's happened to me. I tend to be a really optimistic person, but there have been times in my life where I really struggle to remember what does make me feel happy. And I'm seeing a lot of ideas in the chat here. Spending time with kids, family, I saw spending time with a horse in there, breathing, laughing, walking, exercise. Good, great. Playing with pups. Oh, I just love dogs. I'm a real dog person, so I'm with you there. Nature, music, being outside. Great, excellent. So as we talk about pursuing happiness here today too, I want to offer a caveat, and honestly, maybe it's more of a warning. You may be familiar with the phrase toxic positivity. I started hearing a lot more about toxic positivity when the pandemic first really hit in the spring of 2020. This concept started bubbling up because there was so much kind of out there in the world about keep your hopes up, do some kind acts. It's, you know, we'll make it through. And this real emphasis on positivity and trying to find happiness, that in some cases people took it too far. And we call that toxic positivity, when they insist that we only look at the bright side, when they insist we only see the good, and when we refuse to acknowledge the yuck, right? The bad situation we're in, when we refuse to acknowledge that sometimes things are really horrible, right? And so that's toxic positivity. And when we're pursuing happiness, and when we're thinking about how do I develop more optimism, we also want to be careful about pushing too far into toxic positivity. It's really important that we feel the full range of feelings, that we acknowledge when we are in a really difficult situation, when we're in the yuck, right? I like to think of it as when we're in this mud and we can't find our way out. It's important that we pause and acknowledge that and sit there for a while and feel all of those negative feelings. And then once we've processed that, then we can move forward with some of our strategies to pursue more happiness. So that's an important caveat / warning that I want to share with you as we go into talking about positivity and pursuing happiness. Okay, so now let me persuade you. Let me tell you why it is so great to think positive. So positive thinking is truly powerful. What we know about our psychology is that our thoughts influence how we feel, and how we feel influences our behavior. So when we are thinking negatively, right, when we are worried about a project and we don't think we have the time or the resources to get it done, and we start to think negative, all the things that can go wrong, all of the possible risks, right, and all the ways that it's going to fail. When we're thinking about that, we're going to very subtly behave in ways that supports the worst case scenario. We might not go above and beyond because we're convinced it's going to fail. We might not try a little harder, try some alternatives, do the testing, you know, whatever needs to happen to make sure it works. We might not do that as completely as we maybe should because we're already convinced it's not going to work. So our thoughts influence our behavior. But if we are thinking positively, this is a challenging project. This deadline is a tight one. We are using every single bit of the resources provided to us. This is going to be tight. This is going to be close. And I think we can do it, right? When we think that way, our behavior changes. It lines up with our thinking. And suddenly we're trying a little bit harder. We're thinking more creatively. We're testing, right? We're coming up with a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. And so we set ourselves up for success when we're thinking more positively. So our thoughts and our behaviors are definitely related, and how we feel influences those as well. We also can think about here rewiring our brains. So the brain is plastic. You may be familiar with this concept. We have neurons in our head, and we have all of these connections among our neurons. The connections is where we do all of our thinking. That's where we have our memories. And the connections between our neurons are plastic, which means that they can grow. We can make new connections. We can learn new things throughout our lifetimes. This plasticity tends to fade a bit as we age, but not until like much older age, like 80s. So we can continue learning and building new connections. When we are thinking positively, it really can help us to rewire our brain in terms of building new connections among the neurons that supports new behaviors, new actions that will help us to achieve our goals. So we really can think about rewiring our brain with positivity. And then finally, we know that positivity is contagious. Emotions are contagious. When you are with someone who is happy and smiling and upbeat, you're going to pick up on that. It's almost impossible not to. You have to really try not to pick up on that because emotions are contagious. Just like negative emotions are contagious, right? When someone's grumpy, I feel like that is picked up on incredibly quickly as well. What we know from the research on emotional contagion is that positive emotions tend to be a bit more contagious than the negative ones. So that's definitely working in our favor. So that's something to think about as well. How is my mood? How is my attitude rubbing off on those around me? Even when you're working virtually, you've probably picked up on this already, right? Even when you're working virtually, you can still pick up on other people's emotions. Emotions can still be contagious. They tend to be more contagious when we are in person, when we can see others' nonverbals. But even via email, we can get a sense for how people are feeling, and we can pick up on that emotion as well. So when we're thinking more positively, we tend to be more engaged at work, we tend to connect with our coworkers more, and we tend to have a more positive work experience. So there are a lot of reasons why we should be thinking positive. I hope I've persuaded you at least a little bit. Okay, so best practices. Here are some ideas for us on how we can start to think more positively. So one we can do is start with 5 positive affirmations each morning. So think about some positive affirmations that really ring true for you. So put some into the chat. If you have some positive affirmations that you often think of when you go ahead and put those in the chat and share them with your coworkers. One that I always have is just be brave, right? Because I find that when I'm feeling scared or afraid, my mood just tanks. And so I always tell myself, be brave. And that always helps me think like, yes, I can do this. Let me think more positively about how all of this can work. And then I will act in ways that make it actually work out. So think about some positive affirmations, lean on those during the day, write them down on a Post-it note. That's where my desk is covered in Post-it notes. And that really helps me just look down sometimes when I'm stuck or frustrated, and it lifts me up just that little bit. And I see some great ones in the chat. Oh, I love it. Great. Be present. I'm a good father. I like that one too. I am loved. Good. I see Jack Andy. That's fantastic. Thank you. All right. Great. Additional things we can do. Oh, let me go back here. I went too fast. We can expect good things to happen. Again, it's that link between our thoughts and our behaviors. When we expect good things to happen, we're more likely to look for the good things. We're more likely to act in ways that make those good things actually happen. We can also speak positively. So we can really take a look at the language we are using. Am I talking about how this project could potentially fail and I'm focused on the failures, or am I talking about how it could potentially succeed? And there are risks we need to pay attention to, right? We don't want to get locked in that positive or that toxic positivity. We have to acknowledge the risks, but we can also focus on what do we need here to make sure we're going to go forward and really nail this, right? So think about how you're framing things, how you're talking about things, and that can be helpful. We can speak positively. I will get this done. I am able to, whatever your goal is, and I rock, right? So building yourself up rather than cutting yourself down. So that goes along the lines with the next bullet of filtering and rewriting your negative thoughts. If you are struggling with this, if you find that you just get sucked into this negative thinking trap and you're just kind of circling, right? And then we end up in this vortex and we're circling the drain. One thing you can do to help you filter and rewrite your negative thoughts is to actually journal. So one thing you can do is on a daily basis, spend some time journaling. It might just be 5 minutes. And I recommend handwriting with journaling because it slows down our thinking and we process things more deeply when we're handwriting. So try handwriting on a sheet of paper, maybe a notebook or a nice journal. And after you've written kind of some thoughts that you have, maybe it's something that's really bothering you, go ahead and write it down and then put it away and take a break. Do something that makes you feel happy. We talked about that earlier. You've got a whole list of things that can make you feel happy. When you feel your mood is in a better place, come back to your journal and now you're going to edit. You're going to start that rewriting process. So go in there, cross things out, talk back to yourself, right? So pretend that you're grading a student's work or something like that, right? And go back in and edit your thoughts. And when you do this over time, you're going to get better at it. And ideally, you're going to start becoming more aware of when you have that negative self-talk live or happening in your brain in the moment. And so then you'll get better at editing and rewriting your thoughts live kind of as they are happening without necessarily doing the journaling. But that journaling is a great first step to help you become more aware of your negative thoughts and help you to rewrite them. We can also look at reframing your thoughts. So with reframing, what we're doing is we're changing how we're looking at things as a problem. And we're thinking about it more as an opportunity. And some people don't really like this idea, but some people really do. This is something that I grew up with. My dad was always telling me this when I would complain to him. He'd pick me up from school or a sport, and I'd be like, oh, this happened today, you know, teenage drama. And he would often look at me and say, Jamie, is this a challenge or is this an opportunity? Is it something that's going to trip you up and get you down, or are you going to see this as an opportunity to learn something new, stretch yourself, grow, and really thrive, right? So don't let this get you down is what he was saying. And there were days where I didn't want to hear it, absolutely. But more often than not, it was really that helpful boost that I needed to rethink this brick wall I'd run into. Instead of seeing it as a wall, let me see it as a wall that I can learn how to scale, or I can learn how to take apart so that I can get through it. So when you are running into problems, think about how can I reframe this, not as a problem, but as an opportunity to learn something new. I know in workplaces, I feel like there's always some kind of new technology adoption happening, right? Think of it as a new opportunity to learn a new software, to get used to some new hardware, whatever it might be, but really try to reframe that as an opportunity to learn. And then dream, hope, and anticipate. So make sure that you are setting goals, and you're setting goals in your personal life and your professional life, and that you're setting a variety of goals. The really big stretch goals that you have to work hard for and will take you years to achieve. Those moderate goals, right? The yearly goals, maybe it's a goal you have for the next 6 months. And then the shorter term goals, maybe you have a daily goal or a weekly goal. Maybe it's a monthly goal, but really make sure that you are setting goals for yourself and that you're shooting for something, that you want to learn something new, that you want to try something or really try to achieve a goal. So make sure that you have goals, both in your personal and your professional life, and that will help you stay motivated and positive as well. A couple role models. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I want to spend more time on strategies here. But Kurt Kuhn might be one that you have not heard about. He worked at UPS part-time, and he ended up having a really positive attitude and was recognized for having this positive attitude. And he eventually got a job working full-time, and he kept getting promoted and promoted and promoted. Eventually, UPS paid for his college degree, his MBA, and now he is the chief financial officer. So he worked his way up with a really strong positive attitude. Michael Jordan, of course, famous basketball athlete, also known for his positive thinking as well. Okay. Additional ideas and strategies for you here. Commit to real change. So this is an important one. We need to not only set those goals and think about what would be a good goal for me, we need to really commit to that change. And when we commit to that change, we have to think about how am I actually going to make this happen? Not just, oh, I have this goal, I want to learn this new thing, or I want to achieve this particular certification, right? We need to actually put actions in place to achieve them. So really commit to it and think about how am I going to make this happen? So for example, maybe you want to earn a certificate and then think about how am I actually going to make this happen? I know for many years I told myself I wanted to learn this new statistical analysis software called R. And I was like, I'm going to learn it. Someday I'm going to learn it. And it was a goal I had, but I never actually committed to changing and really learning that software package until finally my friend was tired of hearing me say it and she said, well, let's do it. So I set the goal, the big goal. I set weekly goals, daily goals, and I just slowly started committing to working on it 30 minutes a day. I eventually got through the course, figured out how to do R, and it was a big challenge for me, and it felt really good to finally accomplish it because I had always just had it floating out there. But once I committed to it, then I really went for it, and it really helped me feel better about my abilities to do that statistical analyses and learn that new software. We also need to make sure that we are rethinking situations so that when we hit those stumbling blocks, when we hit those challenges, we can rethink them and figure out how do I get through this? How am I going to get by this? What can I do here? What are my resources? And how can I really achieve my goal? Think about how you can be a role model for other people. I think that is something that helps me. I'm a mom, I have 2 kids, and my kids definitely have some bad days, just like the rest of humanity. And I think we have to let people talk about their bad day. And then I think at the same time, it's helpful for them to help turn things around. And so be a role model for that. Tell people about times when you struggled, when you had a really bad day. I do this with my kids all the time. I had this really bad day and this is what happened. And here's how I turned it around, right? So we don't want to just commiserate with people and say, yes, that's really awful, but to say, and here's what I did about it, right? And here's how I turned things around. Here's what I learned from it. And I think that's a really great way to be a role model. And we can do it with coworkers. You can do it with students that you are working with as well. I think that's a really great way to show people how we can continue to be positive even when we are stuck on that yuck. And then even when times are really hard, again, try to find that positivity. It can be really hard sometimes, and we don't want to force it, right? Again, that toxic positivity, we want to be careful about that. But I think we can almost always find one good thing, one small, teeny tiny silver lining to that dark cloud. I think it can really stretch us in some ways when we really try to find what is one good thing. And I see meditation in the chat. Yes, meditation can be really helpful because it can slow down our thinking and clarify our thinking as well. And so sometimes when we're doing that, we get this little bit of openness in our brain where we can find what's that one teeny tiny small thing. Some additional strategies here. I want to talk about gratitude. So Dr. Martin Seligman, he is that father of positive psychology that I mentioned at the beginning of the session. He's done quite a bit of work on gratitude, and the research on gratitude really is powerful, and it's something that I think about every day as I have my own gratitude practice. What we found through numerous research studies is that gratitude can help us to be more resilient. It helps us to bounce back when we are experiencing adversity. It can help us manage our stress as well. So what a gratitude practice can look like is really quite flexible. And the research has shown that we can do big things or small things, but they all have an impact. So some of the original research was where college students wrote for an hour a gratitude letter. They wrote to someone who had a significant impact on their lives, and they wrote about why they were thankful for that person. They then went to that person and shared the letter with them. They found that these college students had a bump in their mood for 3 months after that 1 hour session followed up with that visit. It's really powerful that that can last for 3 months. Other researchers have found positive impacts of a gratitude practice with just something that you do daily, where at the end of the day, you write down in a journal 3 great things that happened. You can do that in the morning as well. You can also just take some time every now and then to express your sincere gratitude and appreciation for someone. The great thing about gratitude is that it helps you and it helps the person that you're sharing it with. So it gives them a lift as well. And then we've got that emotional contagion that happens too. So gratitude can be really powerful. Even if you never share that letter, if you write that gratitude letter, even if you never share it with someone, the research has shown we still see a bump in mood that can last for quite a while. So we don't even have to share that letter. If the person has passed away or we're no longer in touch, just writing that letter can be impactful. All right. And then I also wanted to talk about laughter. Laughter is another really great way to boost our mood. It also helps us decrease our stress. If you think about when you really get going into some great laughter, right? Like your shoulders are up and you're taking these short gasping breaths because you're laughing so hard. When you're done, there's always that, right? And you can feel your body going into a place of relaxation, and you catch your breath again and you feel better. So laughter can be another really great way to help you feel better. And there are so many ways you can bring some laughter into your life. Even just in the chat with that Jack Handy gif I saw, great ways to bring in laughter, right? We've got the internet. I feel like we're never far away from some laughter as long as we've got the internet. So do some things that just are silly and make you laugh. Laughter yoga is something you can do. I've actually done laughter yoga. It feels really silly, but it really does help you feel good once you're all done with it, and it's a fun experience. And then finally on here, eating right and exercising. So that's taking care of your physical health. What we eat, how we sleep, whether we're getting our 30 minutes of exercise in a day. Those 3 things make us real physically strong so that we can be more resilient and work on our positive thinking a little bit more as well. Okay, I talked about gratitude already, but here are some additional impacts of gratitude we see. It helps to motivate, build strong connections, can open up others to new ideas. It creates a more warm and positive culture. It promotes growth, and it really does feel great. So a little more there on that power of gratitude. Okay, so as I wrap up this presentation, I want to refer you to your Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield Employee Assistance Program. You have access to 6 no-cost counseling sessions that are offered either face-to-face or via Live Health Online. There are also emotional well-being resources by Learn to Live, and you can see the phone number is on the slide there, as well as the website, and your login is SNHU. All right, I've been seeing the chat going a lot. I have not caught everything. So if you have a question you would like me to answer, we have about 10 minutes here for questions. So go ahead, repost in the chat, and I will try to pick that up and answer it for you. Okay. Oh, great, and I see we've got more information on the even chat too, the EAP. Good. Oh, and I'm just reading through the chat and I see someone posted this and then commented on it too. When I have negative thoughts about myself, I always remind myself I would never speak to another human that way. I deserve to respect myself with my thoughts. I love that. Yes, it's so true. Sometimes we can just be so mean to ourselves. It's important we remind ourselves that we need to be supportive.